HiSec Buyback offers 90% GDA anywhere in HiSec. Simply go to hisec.evebuyback.com, appraise your items, create a contract, and get paid quickly. HiSec Buyback
Welcome to
offers
Talking
90%
Stations.
GDA
Today is December
anywhere in
1st.
HiSec.
I'm your host
Simply-
Shen, joined by LB
Hello.
and Nick Bison.
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Happy Wednesday, and it's the first day of December. So today, as our usual Wednesday show, we're gonna go over some war update or some battle reports. I think we're gonna start off in Pureblind. So that'll be the conflict between Brave Collective and the locals, which is gonna be Banderlock this time. So for people who are unaware of this conflict, so basically Brave is coming into Pureblind, trying to take Solve, and Pureblind and Banderlock is defending their space. So from the map we're seeing, right, Brave has one constellation plus a couple more systems. And if you look at the hub, they're actually going into some of the core Banderlock systems, right? So that system of ELA tag. So Brave already took the iHub of that. And there have been fights happening over there for the past week. So this is a spot that we're going to keep an eye on. So far, there's not like, besides that Fortizar that Brave dropped, there's not really like big battles. But there'll be a lot of potentials here, right? It's very close to LoSec, and there are two NBC constellations in Pureblind, right? There are potential of big fights happening of different alliances, coalitions preparing their capital fleet or super cap fleets in those places. Maybe you can see some big fights in the future in the next few weeks.
Now, isn't EL8, is that a Banderlog staging system? I know they work out of the Mordou's Legion NPC constellation a lot, but I thought that was staging for them. Am I wrong?
I think that's the case, right? Yeah. So, but right now, since they took that, I think most of Banderlog, I wasn't most of them, but like I will see a lot of them is in the Mordou's Legion NPC station there. That was got moved. All of their like ships, all their asset is moved there.
Yeah, if you look at I just switched it over to the kills in the last 24 hours. That 5ZXX right there in the NPC constellation seems to be where most shooting's going on right now.
Yep. So, I mean, we don't have a big battle report to talk about here. I mean, and then we can move on to our next theater, war theater, which is going to be Cloud Ring. Yeah, so Cloud Ring there. So Cloud Ring, so that's a conflict between the Imperium, or like basically the Initiative, and Triumvirate. So Triumvirate is the locals here in this case, and then Yin is trying to push towards Cloud Rings, and we're seeing some battles. So we're seeing, I think, a jump bridge battle in that system in OXW, right there, connecting to OTAC-Z. So there used to be a jump bridge. I think there's a battle happened between that or around that jump bridge. I don't have the full battle report, but it's an interesting place to keep your eyes on, since there's going to be still potentials happening, right? It's close to Fountain, which is the home of initiatives, and it's also right next to the Syndicate, right, which is NPC nullsec.
I'm also not sure, I don't believe, granted, I don't have any sources I've talked to recently in it, but I don't think Init wants that space. I thought they were trying to help French Connection and another group that I just lost the name of out of my head move into that, basically help get them established in there.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing too. And it's really just in it for the jump bridge access. If Tri had given them the jump bridge access, this conflict wouldn't be an issue. But because Tri has decided not to give that up, and it's going to go ahead and install these other two alliances in this space and push Tri out of it.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense, right? So I think French Connection is so French Connection, for people who don't know, is part of the Imperium, or at least allies to the Imperium, and they need a space to live, and then they want to go into Cloud Reign, and then they have the help of initiative to settle them down in Cloud Reign.
And French Connection's not very big right now. I've just pulled them up. We're only looking at 106 members right now. Why does that seem? Yeah, a heck of a drop off here recently. I don't have anything on that. Let's see what corp's left. Number of cores. Take a look here. Just left and went over to the initiative with literally half the numbers of what was in French Connection.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big movement. Maybe they're merging, maybe not. But like you see, the two corporations moving to initiative, and down below, I think there's another two that I'm seeing right now moving to initiative. So a lot of corporations that used to belong to French Connection are now moving to the initiative.
Yeah, about 600 plus pilots. Yeah,
That's a big number there.
yeah, that's a big hit.
Yeah. So other than this, we still have the last part, which is I would say some of the bigger conflicts that we're seeing nowadays, which is the conflict down south. So this time we actually have a battle report. This battle happened in Curse. So in the constellation of Tranquility, in the system of UW9B TAC F. So this battle is a timer. So the objective in this case is a fort armor timer. So it's a RC fort repairing its armor coming out of reinforcement. And on the left side, we're seeing the defenders, which is RC plus PIBC plus RMC. On the right side, we're seeing the attackers, which is going to be fire plus test, with X Papulences. So the outcome of this battle. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say not huge numbers, but there are a lot of folks down there.
Yeah. So the objective at the end was so the fort is saved. So it got repaired, and we're seeing some good fights between both sides.
It's nice to see you see a number of caps deployed here on the defending side, which is tells you it's important to them, obviously, and someone's not afraid to undock caps again. Thank God.
Yeah.
This is an armor timer, right?
Yeah. So this is the armor timer.
Okay, that's why those caps are there, because they can just tether back up if the fight goes bad, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we kind of saw like the opposite example a few weeks back with Brave, right? They dropped some caps on anchoring for this art, and that didn't go really well. But in this case, it's armor timer. So no matter if the timer got reinforced or not, those caps is still gonna be there afterwards. So it's actually this fight, I was actually there, and it happened kind of in two parts. One part is like the armor timer repaired. So before the timer was repaired, well, before the fort is repaired, those caps are actually not on grid. So just basically both sides fighting. So RC brought in their armor battleship doctrine. So you see Armageddons plus Typhoons, plus logics like Guardians, and then boost like our Dominations. And RC and PIBC we brought I think it was Serbs, that time. On the right side, we're seeing Munings plus Serbs, right? Standard hack doctrines. Munings from Fireside and Serbs from the Fireside, and then Munings from Test. Yeah. So after the armor timer is repaired, we actually just go tether back, but they decided to start reinforcing the fort again to its shield timer. So basically reinforce the shield, and we basically detether and then fight again, and then they basically backed off, and the fort is fully repaired after this. and that's the time where the capsule actually dropped. So it's between the armor timer and the shield timer. In terms of final ISK loss on both sides, it's kind of reflective of the numbers we're seeing, right? On the left side, we're seeing 190 versus the right side, which is 136. And the right side lost a bit more than the left side, so 18 bill to 14 bill. So it kind of makes sense in terms of number here. Anything else to conclude our war update segment?
Is there anything, okay, because this is an NPC space over a fort. Other than that, I mean, obviously there's going to be no iHubs, no jump bridges in NPC space. Is there any other significance we know of yet on this area or this particular, fort?
I can speak to this a little bit. So I used to live in this area, or around this area actually, and just in Spalding Pass on the outside of this. This is an NPC mission pocket. So all these stations here in Curse have NPC level 1, 2, 3, 4 missions in them. And this is all people do to earn money in this area, is they run these burner missions and they run these level 4 nullsec agent missions. So if you have forces in the area, Fortizars, Astra Houses, whatever, you can disrupt all the money making that occurs in those two pockets there on the edge of Curse. So that's
that makes a lot more sense. Yep.
Right. Yep. So the Wrecking Crew and friends have their structures there, and they're disrupting all the money making that's occurring there, and they're probably running them as well.
Right on. So I guess we can move on to our meat and potato of tonight's show, which is going to be pulling Concord. So the topic is about suicide ganking, but I think a lot of people have seen this forum post which titled "Pulling Concord is now a permanent offense." So at the end, we have an update from GM Arcade saying that. So there are two parts of this. I'll just I'll just summarize the first part, which is it is declared by. So it's not really clear in terms of like what like the official rule is, but you should always refer back to the Evaline like help center, and then they are keep their eye on the known and declared exploits and the help center, which is the things that you should refer to. And from there, it says that pulling or spawning Concord in locations is an exploit. But there's an update to that. And they're saying it is clear to them that the message that's communicated was too vague and does not provide sufficient details to convey the intent of the policy changes. So for that, they didn't communicate this with CSM beforehand. But they think in this case they should, because normally this is just like a customer support type of thing, or it's a kind of just rules support policies. But in this case, it's actually something like game mechanic related. So they should have, they acknowledge that they should have, but they did not. So with that, now they're saying there will be no changes to how support our policing Concord interaction, and that pulling Concord or defensive spawning of Concord is currently permitted, but we reserve the right to change this at a future date.
Yeah, this whole thing caused quite the kerfuffle in not just the forums, in our TIS Discord, and then obviously the CSM got involved. They may have been on it, the minute it came out. But yeah, initially it came out and said, you can't do it no more. That was it. And it wasn't 2 hours later that this update comes out and says, okay, pulling for or defensive spawning. And then we got into a big conversation about, what is offensive or defensive spawning to move Concord. The most prevalent example, too, of defensive spawning of Concord, if I know I'm going to be sitting on a nice moon to mine in HiSec and I don't want to be bothered, I'm going to have somebody roll out there. Some people are going to use alts, some are going to use, friends in another core. Have them roll out there in a noob ship, take a pot shot at you. Concord's going to spawn on that spot, and the Concord mechanic, they don't leave unless they're pulled away by another illegal act in that system or downtime. So they're going to be there a while. On the defensive side, I've seen miners, let's say, do this, and then if Concord rolls away as the area spikes, it's like, oh, time to get out. So that's one of the two defensive methods I've seen this used. The second is, I know I'm going to go through Udama, and I'm coming in from this side, this gate, so I'm going to, again, roll some knucklehead in ahead of me in a rookie ship, take a shot at anybody. Concord's going to spawn, jump the freighter in, and Concord's still going to be sitting there, which means the reaction time is frickin' zero at that point when they're on that point with you on grid, as opposed to if they were elsewhere in the system, they have to despawn and then respawn to where you're at. And that's where the time based on the security system of that system starts kicking in. So it's kind of convoluted. I know I don't have that 100% right, but that's pretty much what happens. And on the offensive side, if I know I'm setting a gank up at this location, prior to that kicking off, like within a few seconds prior, like 10 or 15 seconds earlier, I'm going to commit a crazy act or have somebody else do it somewhere in system far away. So it will pull Concord there. So now I have the full amount of time I need to take care of my gank.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. So I think this started off with a player putting out a message from a GM saying that he did this kind of act and he got banned for that, and he posted on a forum, which is I think is this forum, and from there people were talking about, oh, is this an exploit or not? Until CCP actually came out with, I think, a sort of like small dev blog about it, saying this is one, and then people were, oh, it's like this is one, but it's like what's boundaries of this, right? Because sometimes, let's say in popular ganking system like Udama, where two ganks or multiple ganks can happen around the same time or very close to each other in terms of timing, right? Does that count as a polling concord? I mean, without looking at any other evidence, it is polling concord or spawning concord before the second person or the third person is going to suicide gang someone. But how do you know if they're together or not, right? Doing this, are they coordinating with each other or not? Or there's a lot of things that can go very sideways on either end. So people are talking about the boundaries and a lot of details around it.
Yeah, and I think in this particular case, because GM Arcade, I've heard him before, is a pretty solid dude. From what I can tell. He wrote the initial one here based off the information he had. So yeah, should he have? Normally the GMs don't consult with, the dev side or the, CSM, because that's not really their normal purview. But because this had a heck of an impact on a game mechanic, is I think why this, I'm going to kind of use the term overturned, but, definitely needed to be looked at a little more carefully. And, now everybody knows I am not a fan of gankers, but I respect the playstyle. So there's some pretty crafty devils, and I don't want them to stop doing that.
Yeah, I mean, suicide ganking is something that's I mean, I wouldn't say very concerning, but it's definitely one of the things that people have to worry about when they're traveling in HiSec, right? Even with or without valuable loot in their cargo. So I think when this came out, people were saying this is like a direct nerf to a lot of suicide ganking in HiSec. I think, as you mentioned, right, it's about the reaction time of Concord, but there's also another thing, which is the amount of DPS or the DPH that you need to take out a ship before the Concord spawns. And that's why Udama as a 0.5 security system, even though it's HiSec, but it's the lowest security of HiSec, that's like the most ganked system pretty much on a weekly basis, right? The reason behind that is in 0.5, the Concord spawn rate is much slower compared to, let's say, 0.8 or 0.9 or even 1.0, right? So with that amount of time, the gankers can calculate, this is how much time I have, this is how much EHP I'm expecting from that ship, and this is how much DPS I would need, or how many catalysts I will need to Suse gank someone successfully, right? Or to put a couple more just for safety, right? But right now, with polling Concord, right, they can extend that amount of time. So they have extra time, which means that it's going to cost them less. They'll have less risk doing that, right? So but without them able to do that, their time of actually just getting onto someone and actually start shooting them is much less compared to the other way. So
LB, what's your feeling on this?
So this is a really hard mechanic to paint in a black and white manner like this, like you're banned or you're not banned. Because it's something as simple as somebody undocking and shooting someone without being in a fleet or having a dual active or whatever. That pulls Concord. So if you've pulled Concord in an inopportune time, now you're banned. So you can't really do that because there's so many variables that go into it. It's good that they pulled it back. I think it's kind of a mistake for them to have thrown it out there in the first place without bouncing it off of somebody else like the CSM. If they had bounced it off the CSM first, this never would have made it to the forum in the first place.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it probably would not have made it there, but I don't know. I don't want that playstyle to go away, because even though I'm living in HiSec right now, the guys like Code and Safety, I got to watch, plus a couple other groups that I've tagged, I got to watch out for them. I got to be careful. It keeps me at the keyboard. So in that respect, I like having them around.
Yeah, it teaches hard lessons if you're not paying attention, and you learn those lessons once, and then you keep them in your back pocket for the rest of your career, or you don't learn those lessons and you end up a repeated target.
Yeah, you end up as a kill mail repeatedly. I guess my only complaint, and this is not to derail or deride the folks that do the gank action, is it, when they plan it out right, they potentially can get a pretty good payday and with minimal loss of ISK/ships. So, the whole crime and punishment, but that's a subject for another day, I think.
I mean, there's a lot more goes into a gank than people realize, right? And by the time you realize that you're in a gank, you've already made several mistakes before you got there, right? So as soon as you undock, if you're in something that you shouldn't be in, the gankers are going to know. They've already cargo scanned you. They've already scanned your ship. They already know you're fit. And now they're going to follow you through the route. And once you've got yourself into that precarious position, you've already been there since you've undocked. So it's hard to it's not hard to avoid, but it's hard to learn those lessons. It's better to learn them from somebody else. HiSec ganking should definitely not go away. Rules like this should really need to be nuanced in order to have the appropriate effect that they're trying to have.
Yeah, and Gurav in chat mentions, he says, does everything need to go through the CSM? The voice inflection is my interpretation. The short answer is no. But he does make a good point. Gankers still do a lot of good destroying valuable assets, keeps the economy moving. I kind of agree with that because it gives me a place to sell the stuff I produce.
Yeah, and now we can look at some of the examples of Suse ganking in HiSec. So right there, I pulled up two kill mills. So one is a kill mill of Providence, and the other one is a kill mill of Okator. So one is a freighter, and the other one is a deep space transport, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can tell with this Providence one right off the bat. As soon as you get to the low slots on the fit, and it's all expanded cargo holds, you're already dead. You're already dead.
Yeah, that's the let me fill it up so I can make one trip instead of two. And choice, legitimate choice he made to make that happen.
And also he was gating his freighters, right? So you can see the location. It was just like around 15 kilometer off a gate. Right, gating freighter is without a Weber, especially, is one of the most dangerous thing I would say you can do in HiSec.
Yeah, it's that one hurt. It looks. I'm just taking a quick gander through there. It looks like potentially someone moving.
Yeah, that looks like a bunch of exploration loot and whatnot. It's not that bad of a hit. It's only 10.5 bill according to Zkill, but still, if that's this guy's collection of things for his whole career, that's going to hurt him in the pocket.
Yeah,
the Akator. I hate seeing an Akator go down because that's like my favorite. But once again, cargo expanders. It's like you already got if you're skilled up, you've got 62,500 M3 in your fleet hangar. What do you need that 3,500 M3 in the cargo hold for?
That's right. Yeah, so dead before he even left the station.
Yeah, and
he's
also
got a medium salvage tackle in the rigs.
Yeah, that's one thing. Also, if you look at the amount of things that's dropped, right? So on the Okator is 6.6 billion, and it only took like 4 tornadoes, right? Assuming those are like really well fit, 125 million each, and that's like 500 million cost, right? And then you look at the amount of things that you can get, which is 6.6 billion in this case. You can really see where the profit is going to come from, and just with this one successful suicide gank, you can take a lot. You can sustain those gankers a lot of attempts in order for them to get another rich one like this, for them to keep going.
Yeah, it's Capital Cargo Bay blueprint. That's a BPO, so that hurts. Taking one of my competitors off the market.
Yeah. What's how do you fit your Akator, Nick?
Oh, let's see. My mids are the micro warp, shield extender, and a when I say shield extender, specifically EM hardener, and then a multispectral in there. My lows are, God, I have to pull one up. Damage control. What's that new unit? Oh gosh, warp stab, stabilizer. Oh god, dang it! I'm losing my mind.
Got the nullifier and the warp core stab.
Yeah, nullifier, warp stab, and then because it's already got a +2, and then a couple of armor hardeners and a 400. Excuse me. Either depending on which one of my Octors, either a 400 or an 800 plate. Can I be ganked? Absolutely, they can smoke
Anybody
me.
can be ganked,
but they're gonna have to work for it a little bit harder.
Garav's giving me grief in the chat because I made you talk about your Akator fit on live stream.
That's
the
okay.
way I fit mine, though, I fit mine for agility. So I have the nullifier, I have the warp core stab, but it's all agility. So I have a triple prop, so a micro warp drive, an afterburner, and a micro jump drive, and then everything else is for agility. And I try to do the micro warp drive cloak trick wherever on every gate, so I don't get cargo scanned.
Oh yeah.
But the extra thing I do is I fill my cargo full of cans of like cargo containers. So when I haul stuff, I put them inside the cargo container. So if you cargo scan my ship, all you see is 24 cans in the cargo hold. You don't see inside the can.
Well, does the cargo scanner look inside the fleet hangar?
It's like, oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to test that.
It's like having a plastic wrap on a courier contract, right? Like you can't see inside the plastic wrap. You can't see inside the can either. You'll just see the cans that are in the cargo hold. So even if somebody does manage to cargo scan me, can't really see anything.
They won't know for sure.
It comes to a point of, do I want to gank this guy or not? Is it going to just drop a bunch of empty cans, or does he have some serious loot inside those cans? So if you're a ganker, do you take that chance? Usually not. Usually you'll wait for the sure thing.
Yeah, and it's about the amount of value that you also carry in your ship, right? If it takes more than double of the amount of ships that's going to cost them to gank it, then it's worth it, right? If it's less than double the amount, right? Because the drop rate technically is 50-50, right? So there's a chance that only half of that is going to drop, right? So if you're only carrying around 200 million worth of stuff, and it takes about 2 tornadoes, which is, let's say, 100 mil each to gank you, they have to really think about, is it worth it or not? But for people carrying, for example, carrying over a billion, over 12 billion stuff, then it's kind of an easy decision for the gankers.
And these are all the hard lessons you learn when you actually get ganked, right? Never carry more than you can than you should be. Never fit for full cargo. Never fit for pay attention to your surroundings. That kind of stuff.
That's why I think this doesn't have anything to do, well, maybe a little bit to CONCORD on the folks that I've mined with that absolutely fit for max yield. I'm like, I sacrifice quite a bit of yield for peace of mind, and tank up a bit.
Yeah, and here, I guess, since we're talking about like a deep space transport, we're going to talk about the two T2 industrial ships that people have the option with, other than flying freighter. Flying freighter in HiSec is always a dangerous thing, no matter how you're going to fit it. Right, it's always dangerous. Just make sure you don't carry too much. But for some more accessible options for people, right, there's the blockade runner, which is a T2 industrial ship that's very agile, and it can fit a cloak to it. But the downside of that compared to the deep space transport, which is like twin brother, the difference is that it can only carry a very small amount compared to the deep space transport.
Yeah, the little blockade runner, plus that covert ops cloak on it, gets into warp quick. Definitely for smaller hauls, 4,500 M3 or less, it's a great option.
Yeah. But I've also seen people fitting them with, let's say, cargo optimizers in the rigs and then cargo expanders in the loads, but also fit a cloak, right? A lot of times it's the amount of time that it takes people to either just target you or to actually just press F1 to shoot you, right? Because you have that cloak, right? You can cloak right away. So in theory, without any delays, it's pretty hard for someone to target you before you just get right off the gate and then you just cloak up.
Yeah, they got to hopefully, they're planning to ram you at that point. But yeah.
Yeah, and the other one we have is the deep space transport, right? Which is Delcator is part of that category. It's a much beefier in terms of tank compared to the blockade runner, right? It has a lot more tank. It has a lot of buffs to its tanking abilities, and it has a 50k M3 worth of fleet hangar, which you can put a lot of stuff into it, and it is increased by skill as well. But the downside of this ship is that it's not as agile as the blockade runner, which means that it's kind of easy to get picked on the gate. Also, yeah, one thing I forgot to mention about the blockade runner, which is that it's immune to cargo scanner, right? So people don't know what kind of things you're carrying. That can be a blessing and it can be a curse. if people don't know what you're carrying, it's kind of assumption for a lot of people, easy assumption for a lot of people that you're carrying some valuable things. Otherwise, you wouldn't use the ship, right? That's the logic a lot of people are going for. With that logic, they're gonna just try to pop you, right? It's gonna be like a random gift. If you're carrying like worth billions of things, then right on, that's their payout for the day. But if you're just empty ship, then they just wasted 2 tornadoes.
Yeah, in the with the Akator and all the deep space transports, the DSTs, your best defense generally, obviously, other than scouts, is the cloak micro warp drive. Trick. They call it a trick, but it takes a little bit of practice, but it can be done. I've only been caught once when doing that because some SOB, I almost said it, in an Ares, was able to pop his micro warp drive on and pretty much guess where I was aiming to, and came over and was close enough to decloak me and bump me. So that hurt.
Yeah, and different deep space transport and different blockade runners has their bonuses to different things. Generally speaking, I think the blockade runners are very similar, right? They have cloaking device CPU and all that bonus. But for the deep space transport, for the deep space transport, some of them bonus to active tanking. I think all of them bonus to active tanking, but it's different ways of active tanking that they're bonus to.
Right. That's the traditional bonuses. So the Galente gets an armor repair amount bonus. I'm sure the Amar gets a similar one, whereas the Caldari and Mimitar both probably get shield repair bonuses.
Yeah. And I mean, it's 50K. So 50K worth of cargo, that is enough to carry a lot of package ships, right? For example, I think a cruiser repackaged is 10K, so you can carry 5. Well, without any skills considered, you can carry at least 5 cruisers. It can be T2, it can be T3. T3 only takes 5,000, so it's possible that you can take 10 Tech 3 cruisers plus its fit in its cargo hold just within a deep space transport.
Well, yeah, in the fleet hangar.
In the fleet.
Yeah, and the thing you mentioned where its base size is 50,000 M3. As you skill it up, if you max it out, it's 62,500. So that's a good chunk more. And very few folks are going to stop at training transport ships 1.
Exactly. I think to just conclude this segment, we're going to talk about some other options for moving around, right? So one of my favorite is going to be the Sunesis, which is like a special edition destroyer. So if fitted correctly, it can align under 2 seconds, and it can have a pretty decent size of a cargo hold, right, around 1,000-ish M3, for carrying just like some small things around some very dangerous places is really good. And if you guys have any favorite methods of hauling stuff that's not just like the traditional ones.
I use a hauling service like PushX.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Or pay somebody else to do it in the Corp or in the Alliance.
Yeah, that's definitely an option too, right? There are haulers around. There are hauling contracts that you can make. That's definitely an option for sure.
And it can be a pretty good option because there's some folk that absolutely love hauling stuff, and I got no problem, paying that what I call it a convenience tax, which is I'll pay someone else to do what I don't want to.
Yeah. So with that, we're gonna move transition smoothly to our CCPlease segment. So the first one I'm going to start off with is very close to our last topic, which is hauling and suicide ganking. So this person asks, fix the Concord polling or pre-spawning by coding Concord to respond to each criminal act and then despawn after X minutes. Seems to be the direction CCP want to go, but it would get around the ambiguity.
Yeah, that was posted by Ragnar, who's kind of a regular in our TIS Discord, and he watches here on the chats on the Twitches also. And I like where he's going with this, especially the despawn after X number of minutes, because that way they're not hanging around, because once they're spawned in system, they're going to be in system all day. And that may not, that helps lead to that ambiguity, not only ambiguity, but the let's spawn them for our own purpose, which I think is what they're trying to slow down or end.
Yeah, because the fastest reaction Concord has is when they're initially spawned into the system. That's the fastest they'll ever respond. After that, it's slower. So with this system, it makes more sense, because if you're a player force, like a player police force, and you show up to the scene of a crime and there's nothing going on, do you sit there all day? Or do you dock back up and do other things until another crime is committed, then undock, right? That's what Concord should be doing then as well. If they show up to a gank, they kill the gankers, save the day, they're not going to hang out there on that gate all day. They're going to go dock back up and maybe get some coffee and donuts and high fives and chocolate cake all around, right? That's what I would do if I was Concord. So I wouldn't sit on the gate all day. This makes perfect sense. Have them despawn after X minutes and then start again from scratch.
Yep, and I think, as you mentioned, the fastest they're ever going to spawn is if there's none in system and it's that first time. The only exception to that, I would say, is if they're already on grid with you, then their response time is non-existent.
Well, if you compare that, I think it's an interesting comparison if you compare that to, let's say, nullsec standing fleets, right? It takes time for, if you're in standing fleet, if you're tackle, let's say in the same system in this case, right, in HiSec, then there's an option called right click, warp to a fleet member, and then you're there. And after that, you likely to just go back to keep start or whatever structure that you have in that system and then wait. Either you wait for intel to say, oh, there's a gang that we can fight, or you just go back and do your own thing. Yeah, so with that, we can move on to our next one. So the next one is PI related. So this person is asking, CCP, please let us able to copy and paste planetary interaction formations and routes between planets. So this is by Nico Lavik. So I guess, Nick, you can have a lot to say on this since you're like a PI heavy guy.
Yeah, I run a number of planets. And I like the idea of copy and paste the interaction formations. Now, the routes and stuff between planets, well, if you're talking about traveling back and forth to pick up or drop off, nah, that's on you. But I run like 36 planets. 33 of them are extraction, 3 are production. All 33 of my extraction planets are set up almost identically. Obviously, not where the extraction heads are at, but where the spaceport, the basic reactors, and storage facility, that pattern's the same on every one of mine. If I could save that and just go, there you go, and just say copy and paste that in, God, that would save me some time setting up stuff. Because every time I move, that's 30 planets plus I got to redo.
Yeah, I dabble in the PI as well. And I think what Nico's saying is not routes between planets. I think what he means is copy and paste planetary interaction formations and routes. between
the
planets.
routes
So you
being
can
the
copy
links
one
between
from each other one.
between. Okay, yeah, I missed that
So
nuance.
all the links between your your extractor and your launch pad and all that jazz, right? So this would save a million clicks. That would really save on the carpal tunnel syndrome and all that good stuff.
The only thing I don't think you could save logically in there is the extractor heads, because what's the odds of that place I pasted into having the hotspot where it happens to be at. But as far as the basic production and launch pads and stuff, that all I definitely agree could be saved with the links intact between them.
Yeah, the extractor heads you'd have to do manually, and also the schematics in each of your laboratories you'd have to you do manually as well.
And I'll happily eat that to cut out a couple dozen clicks per planet.
Yeah, I feel like this is really like a quality of life update if actually it comes to TQ, right? Because when you're actually doing this, you're tethered in a structure out in space. You're not really doing anything that people can catch you, or maybe they can bump you in some way, but there's not really just like PvP or player and player interactions. If you're just setting up PIs like over and over again, I think just a lot of repetitions and a lot of just same stuff over and over again.
You can do this while in control of a Citadel as well. You don't even have to be undocked.
Right. The
Yeah,
only
but
time
I
I think the only
you
time you
need-
need to be undocked is to move materials onto or off of the planet itself.
But I think you need to be on dock with a PI command center in your cargo hold in order to do that, right? If
Well,
you're
in
setting
order
up a
to
new
lay it
planet.
out the first time, yeah.
Yeah. So, but if after that, like every time you set up, just restart the extractor, you can do it like even within the Citadel itself. Yeah. So I think we move on to our last one of today's show, which is gonna be one from Cassie LP, saying that CCPlease allow switching of pods without having to get out of the ship that you're in.
Now he's getting a lot of pluses on that, and then the first thing I'm thinking about, if I'm still in that ship, lore-wise, I got to get out of the ship and be out of my pod in order to do anything, especially move from one clone to another. If I'm still in the ship, does that mean the ship goes with me, or how? So mechanically, I'm just thinking it through, probably horribly right now. I don't know. I'm not sure if mechanically CCP could do that while you're in a ship. What happens to the ship when you leave? Does it go with you? Does it stay there? Just one more thing they have to try and keep track of for you.
So what I think Casey means is that when you're in a Citadel and you want to switch, let's say you're in your learning pod with your +5 implants, and you don't want to take that out on your PvP room. So you have to get out of your ship, switch to a blank pod, then get back in your ship with your pod. So that's like 2 or 3 session change timers that you have to go through in order just to change your pod. Right?
Yep, 16 to 24 seconds. Yep.
Yeah. So I understand like the lore says that the clone is in the pod and the pod has to come out of the ship for you to get out of the pod and then get another clone and then get back in the pod and then get back in the ship. That's what the lore says. But do we want to stick to the lore or do we want to remove 30 seconds of sitting in station, waiting for traffic control to let you get in your new pod? I think it doesn't make really any sense.
I guess the other part I look at with it is how much of a pain in the backside. And I kind of like the idea, so don't get me wrong. I'm just looking at from the developer side of it, and they go, okay, he's in a destroyer, and he wants to switch from his, head A to head B. How much of a pain in the butt is that to make those kind of swaps when it's not isolated, when that particular unit, the unit being that pod is now part of a ship versus when it's not. And that, they may want to do it, but it might be, technologically just a pain in the backside. They'd rather do something else.
Yeah, it might be that the juice isn't worth the squeeze on that, especially if you're using fitting implants or like a high grade pirate sets and stuff like that that would change the characteristics of your ship so drastically. Maybe it's just easier to take the pod out, switch the heads, and then refit that ship with the new pod.
Yeah, because at what point does it load your attributes into the ship, meaning implants and anything extra as opposed to just your skills? Does that happen when you jump in the ship or not? So yeah, I can see where it would be a pain coding wise.
And also,
Don't get me wrong, I do like the idea though.
yeah, I think one thing that I would say is like, it's not, if you think about it, it's switching a pod, or you can think about the other way, which is switching implants within different pods, right? Let's say if I have an empty pod and I have a pod with, let's say, +5 implants, right? What I actually do is just switch those implants to another pod without destroying, of course, right? And that's when you have a fresh clone or like an empty clone with in your ship and a +5 clone in the Citadel, right? That's essentially what you're doing. I think mechanically, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but we have to wait and see. I mean, they still haven't removed pods yet, so like it's gonna take time with a lot of the old codes, I guess.
Yeah, well, we used to have to. I don't believe it's true anymore, but literally, because I haven't switched pods in a while, we used to have to stop training to switch pods.
Yeah, you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm showing my age, sorry. I still have an Iteron 5 with large rigs on it, okay?
Yeah, I mean, with this, it can also be switch pods without like. So another thing I think you can do is like if you have this pod sticking with this ship, right? Let's say if I have an empty pod, like that's already linked up with my Muning, or I have my super cap pod, right? I have my hell pod linked to my hell, right? Every time I switch pod, I will switch to that ship. Maybe that's an option that CCP can also do, right?
That's an interesting idea.
Right, yeah. Or let's say I have my Ishtar with a +5 pod in it and a Muning with an empty pod in it, right? I think that's a very valuable thing to do, right? Every time you get into the ship, you automatically get into the same pod. You're ready to fight as soon as you get into the station, and then just switch to that ship, right? That's like one, or what's also will be like 2 session changes, right? Instead of like the 3 or 4 that you have to go through when you have to leave ship and then switch pod and then get into a ship and then dock. Save some time. So with that, we're going to move on to our last segment of tonight, which is going to be the lore section. So we have we have one forum post and we have one devlog. So I guess we can start off with the forum. So here is the forum presenting the Eve Pandora. So any of you guys want to talk about it?
Yeah, with the Pandora Agency, and if you haven't, I'll put this link in there in the chat here in a sec. But it's players, in-game players that are basically role play, for lack of a better term, as agents that you can run missions for, and it can be a variety. I don't want to just beta testing coming to an end. But you can get missions and rewards from them, to go do. So it's rather interesting, the whole idea. I haven't had a chance to, check it out fully yet by any stretch, but it's a good write-up. It looks like it might be kind of interesting, of what you might want to do.
Yeah, this sounds really interesting, especially this the scenario he gives at the end of the post there is quite compelling, right? You create a campaign, the campaign is locked and only available to your alliance, but somebody quote unquote hacks the campaign and sees all your war plans now, and now the intended target creates a counter campaign. Now we have like play and counterplay all done within the app, and then also done in space as well, right?
That's pretty cool. I like the level of work they've put into this is pretty impressive too.
Yeah. So another like the dev blog that we have is called the Capsuleer Chronicles. Um, yeah. So this is also, I think, lore related. So this is a joint comic series between the Eve Online narrative team and the Black Horse Comics.
And the
so-
first, there's like a 20+ page, already available on the web here to go look at and read. So this is kind of cool.
Yeah, and we have a scope video right here. I think attaching to this, I think it's meaning that it's going to talk about stories that was mentioned in this scope video. So this is a scope video related to the system of Ravos.
Yeah.
Ravos. Yeah, that's one of the systems that's conquered by Chiclavians, and it's one of the currently the parchment system right now. Yeah, so if you're interested in this, then this is something that you should definitely go check it out.
Yeah, this is super interesting. So if you go to the Dark Horse comic website, you see they actually do a lot of these with different games, right? Halo's in there. There's some Overwatch comics and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. It's a digital comic strip. There's a Stranger Things comic. It's really good.
Yeah, this is really kind of cool. I'm going to have to later tonight. I think I'm going to sit down and read through it all.
Now I feel like there's one more way to recruit people into EVE Online. Just show them the comics, right? If they're interested in join the game, right? You can make this happen in your own hands, right? This don't need to be happen in other people's hands. Yeah, so with that, we have our last thing, which is a shout out to the sale. You have, I think, until December 2nd, which is tomorrow's downtime, which is not that far away from now. You still have a few more hours that you can get the Cyber Monday sale. So that's a lot of sales. That's 15 to 50% discount on all packs on Eve Store, on the Epic Game Store, and the Steam Store. So if you really want some Plex or some Omega time, I think this is a good time to check it out. Yeah, so with that, anything to say about today's show from both of you?
I'm good to go. Glad to have LB on here with us. It's a fresh voice, different perspectives. I like that.
Yeah, thank you. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, here we go. So today was December 1st. It's a Wednesday. So this is Talking Stations. Good night.